Eyelets this year. There used to be an old joke when I was a little boy that in order to be a rabbi in America, you had to know Oregon 712222, which was Rav Moshe Feinstein's phone number. And if somebody asks you a shayla, you call Rav Moshe. Lahavdil and Chaim L'chaim, many rabbis, myself included, when we have kashrus questions that people ask, I say, go to www.kosherquest.org and ask Rabbi Eilitz. So I just want to, I know Rabbi Eilitz won't, but to make an appeal, his Pesach pamphlets, books, really are here. If anyone wants, I'm happy to give it after the shirt. And if you are
the drink should be
not present but are watching this year, so you could go to www.kosherquest.org and get it that way. I want to surprise Rabbi Eilitz. There's over 60, maybe 70 already, units of people who are watching around the world. I just picked, and especially we have Kihilas Oev Sholom from Dallas, Texas, who the rabbi is Rabbi Roden, a longtime friend of mine, and associate rabbi is Rabbi Darrison, who is online watching right now. So somebody Rabbi Eilitz knows very well, and many of the people of that Kihila are watching from Dallas, Texas right now. So everyone enjoy.
Okay. Yeah, Shalom Aleichem, everyone. It's as you know, I enjoy coming to Anshe Emes. I started coming here about 70 years ago with Rabbi Summers' father, Rabbi Summers Sr., Olav Shalom, and spent a number of years davening in the shul here. This was the place what that was authentic and a wonderful thing. So Hakaras HaTov is certainly a major bedrock. My Mashgiach Reb David Konga, as it's all used to say, as towards the Rebbeinu Shalom. And certainly my Hakaras HaTov to Anshe Emes is major since that's the beginning. Today's Gemara Daf Yomi debates whether someone is a Rebbe Mufak, a person's outstanding singular Rebbe, which has certain halachos involved with it. If they taught them Aleph Beis, that would make Anshe Emes my Rebbe. And so certainly it's always a geschmack coming back. But I would say something about this year, a general klal on the what we're looking for, what's out there as far as our being careful in mitzvahs and what we're getting. There's an incredible amount to mix up. Forget that in the supermarkets, it is common to have in the kosher section, regular kosher, kosher for Pesach, whatever. That's not their fault. They don't know what they're doing, and therefore they just do what they think is the right thing. We do know what we're doing, so therefore, of course, we have to check everything, every piece, literally every piece that we pick up in places we have to check. But it used to be that I could say something like that about supermarkets. Now it's with the most kosher stores, it's the same thing, because the star K, the OK, the Chaf K, the OU in a major way, all certify kitnios. They all are certified. Now, chametz has the psukim that aser chametz. But then there's kitnios Ashkenazim, observe very carefully. All of those things of which I have in the guide a list, those that are core, things like corn and rice, and things that are not, that have come from it. There are many that are neither chametz nor real kitnios, but are treated as quasi-kitnios, as the Mishnah Berurah says, simply because they're either, as in the case of quinoa, they're grown next to fields of chametz, and therefore could be chametz mixed into it, as well as numerous other things of that type that could have. This is why we no longer are getting spices by themselves, just spices from anywhere that is kosher during the year, but we're concerned spices have gone the way pretty much as ice cream. Ice cream used to be that Baskin-Robbins made ice cream. Häagen-Dazs made ice cream. Carvel had an ice cream plant. It's not like that anymore. There's 5 major places in the United States that make ice cream, and they're all in one building. They are, right now, all the kosher ones are there, and on some shelves in the warehouse it says Carvel, on some it says Baskin-Robbins, different mashgichim, different products, same machinery. They found that's what's happened a lot with the spice industry as well, so that we can have one place that is manufacturing, crushing, processing many things, since they're doing for many countries, many locales in the country, and that's where we now, for Pesach, do want to have on spices that are crushed, that are processed, hashgacha for Pesach. On the other hand, something like this, pure peppercorns, or anything of that sort that is a pure and is not mixed with other things. Like here we have the cinnamon sticks. This is not crushed cinnamon, this cinnamon sticks. And as cinnamon sticks, they're fine. Nothing has been done to them. In the processing to make them, roll them as the sticks as before it got to the machinery. And therefore, that type of a thing is not an issue with special hashgacha for Pesach. Otherwise, it would be. When it comes to kitnius, though, again, it is so prevalent that we've got to look at everything. There's a nice company, makes numerous things. This is a grain-free pasta, heaven and earth company. Make a lot of stuff and a lot of good things for Pesach. They're making some of these different heaven and earth organic coconut flour, and they're doing it legitimate. This one is OUP and a number of other hashgachas, all legitimate, good hashgachas for Pesach. This one is a grain-free pasta, OUP. In other words, it is not even gebrachs. So now we know it's good for Ashkenazim. If it says OUP, that means it's good for everyone. If it says that it is grain-free, it means that even those who do not eat soaked matzah, this would be fine. And therefore, it's good. But then, different color, otherwise same print, is the heaven and earth, which is a brown rice pasta. And it says on it, OU Parav. Then it has a hashgacha from Beit Yosef that it is okay, but it says very clearly in Hebrew, in very small letters, kitnios, that it is a product of kitnios. So this is only going to work someone who can read the Hebrew. B, it's someone who can read the print. But so you got to look. It's really a matter of looking at everything and seeing what some things came out very good over the past couple of years. Very good tasting, very good hashgacha, like Planet oat milk, and this is oat chocolate bars. This is OU Parav. It's one of the few Parav chocolate bars that are out, and it's made from oats. Obviously, this is chametz. It says it's made from oats. So we have to then psychologically start thinking what is actual chametz and get rid of before that time. A product that we've had for a while that takes on various instructions as to what to do with is joiva. The joiva twist, a marshmallow twist. Again, the history was many years ago, joiva said that there's 2 things in it and they're sticking with it. One, non-kosher source gelatin. The other is having the kitnios having a corn syrup always. Because that corn syrup was their signature taste in the marshmallows. So those two things, they said, forget it, they need. Along came years later, after decades, came along a great gelatin, fish gelatin, that was tasteless, that price went down to regular price, and is a great product. So they said, okay, we'll switch. We'll switch. Till then, they were under hashgacha that I would not recommend. Then they said, we'll switch. Well, there was nothing wrong with the corn syrup, and they were switching the gelatin, they got the chafkei. And that's what they still have to this day. However, they still won't give up on the corn syrup. So come Pesach, they have corn syrup, which means it goes back to the original hashgacha on it because of the corn syrup. Gelatin, in the background, the chafkei is certifying it. What we see, because of the corn syrup, is a different hashgacha that I would not recommend. Therefore, if somebody does eat kitnios legitimately, that's not all Sephardim eat kitnios, but if that is their tradition and they're having kitnios, or for everyone before and after Pesach, that's fine. That's great. Because again, the gelatin that we can't really tell, but it remains a good one. It is really under chafkei, and it's just a Pesach issue. Sometimes we just can never tell without knowing what it is. The finger paints from Crayola and the modeling clay from Crayola, kids tend to put their fingers in their mouth. Therefore, they make it edible. The same way as Play-Doh. Play-Doh is made that any child can swallow it without ill effects. They have to do that, since definitely many will do that, and that's what they do with these as well. Most things I've listed in the guide, the few that do contain chametz, but most is like a paste, but most of them do not, are not an issue. The coffee hasn't changed too much, a little bit. There's Taster's Choice, Folgers, and of course everyone else. Coffee beans, regular roasted coffee beans are roasted coffee beans. Nothing's been done to them that we care about, not general kashrus, not Pesach kashrus. Those are fine. But when it comes to Pesach, then the decaf beans, whole beans, are an issue. Most of them, not all, but most are floating the caffeine off with an alcohol. It's much faster than the Swiss method of water and cooking, and cheaper. So most do that. The few that are not are listed by name, and are not hard to find. Trader Joe's, all the stores carry them. It's just that you need to look at those brands that are going the distance and getting the healthier product and not getting the ones that are using alcohol. When it comes to instant coffee, we ran into another issue. The instant coffee they found was getting a little bit stale when people would open the jar and leave it, because after all, they took the beans, roasted the beans, crushed the beans, put them into a container, and now when that's left open, it's subject to getting a bit stale. What did they do? Came up with an ingenious idea. In the spray dryer, the way that one makes the instant coffee is you make a bunch of sludge, a very thick coffee. It's put into a very tall spray dryer, it's called, at a few hundred degrees heat, and it goes in through a small nozzle, 1/20,000th of an inch thick, so it's pushed under pressure, and it falls down as powder. The same thing that's done with medicines. What they invented was, on the other side, they're spraying a corn syrup, so as each tiny piece is on its way falling down and becoming powder, each piece of powder is now coated with the corn syrup. The Taster's Choice is okay on regular. Folgers Instant is the only non-certified one that we can still get that is both decaf and regular. They chose both things. They chose not to do that. They chose not to decaffeinate in the chametz fashion with alcohol, and therefore the Folgers is good with both. Many people buy the Maxwell House. That doesn't need to be spoken about. Really, that it has OKP on it all year, and that one is of course fine. In most stores, Ralph's and others, you find cage-free white eggs. They're the 100% egg whites. It all year has, people don't notice, on the very top, next to the cap, an OUP. It's always with that. It needs it. When they take the whites, some people, to avoid bloom and avoid for it to progress any further, will halt it with a corn syrup, and again, it's a Kitnios issue, but this does not have it. Generally, where the eggs go over here somewhere. No? Oh, here. There we go. Generally, eggs are not that much of an issue. There are various things to keep in mind. The Shulchan Aruch says that one preferably, traditionally, should buy eggs before Pesach. The reason for tradition is two. It's a Taz and a Shach. There are two different opinions. One is because we feed the corn and maybe chametz, but certainly kitnios and things, to chickens, and it may get onto the eggs, or either may get on the eggs, or just internally, it is the product of chametz. Either way, so the tradition was to buy it before. It still is, but it's not as important anymore. We don't have that much now. Most of our chickens lay eggs. They're in a coop. They lay, it goes in a funnel and comes out into a place. The other, and it's they don't have them, but free range might have that. Free range might have that, because free range, that's what free range is, that they will fling the feed out. They have to anyway get the chickens pecking. In order to get eggs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made b'chasda gadol two ways of having eggs. Either through a male, normal in fertilization, that's a fertile egg. Only place I know where to get that is the bottom shelf of Whole Foods. No one else that I've seen in all of California carries it. And even that, they usually carry 2 or 3 cartons, and that's only for the people who do not follow the science, which is that it's just as healthy, the non-fertile eggs, as the fertile eggs. What's not so healthy is that fertilized eggs have a lot of blood in them often. And that blood is bad news, because that blood, is meant to turn into a chick. And since it's meant to turn into a chick, it's like a bug. It's a barrier. It's a creature. And so it's not batal. It's just not batal. If there's already something for me, it's not batal. And that really is quite an issue. What we're buying normally is non-fertile eggs. How did they come about? The chickens peck on pebbles that it starts a mechanism in the body, and they lay an egg. Then the egg starts developing, they lay an egg. That's a non-fertilized egg. In a million years, that cannot, without a nes nigla, cannot become a chicken. A chick cannot develop from that. When Empire buys they buy eggs, and they hatch them, and they develop them because they want a certain way for shechita. They buy fertilized eggs. There's farmers that have the fertilized eggs. These eggs cannot hatch. So when we get them, if a person can, it is still good to follow the minhag that a person buys before. Let's say you can't. Well, before, because we live in a big city, before means that if a person buys it right after the first days, it's still like before, because those eggs have been there, they've already been produced, and from the production, from the farmer. Now, if we would be going on a trip and a farmer has eggs on the roadside, we have all sorts of questions. Is it fertilized? Is it something that was produced on Pesach? And so on. That would be more of an issue. Yeah. We still check eggs. Why? As Rav Moshe Feinstein explains in Yeridea, that it is something to check because we don't eat blood, any blood. It's bottle, but what if there was a lot of blood? So we check it anyway. He says halachically, if a person would scoop out the blood, a little bit of blood, it's kosher. But our minhag is to just dump the egg. But that's a minhag, that's not really because it had to be. It really is a bottle. The thing to remember for Pesach, then if they are pasteurized eggs, that's not cooked eggs, it's pasteurized. To avoid salmonella, they can pasteurize it for 3 seconds at flash pasteurization, high temp, and it will not start cooking anything, it won't harm it whatsoever, and that is fine. Free range, and these are, of course, happy eggs, they claim, so these are just fine as well for Pesach. Ice is ice. And there's not a whole lot to mention. Of course, water's always kosher Pesach, so is ice, but not this ice. This is a flavored ice. It may very well, I haven't looked into it, may very well not be kosher for the whole year. Once there's flavoring, there are 1,008 flavors that the FDA allows under the word flavor, that added flavor. That's all they have to write, added flavor. And it goes an incredible amount from things, insects to some birds to some intestines, all sorts of things that it's added flavor. Wine, grape juice is a major one in that. Butter is artificial flavor or natural flavor, whatever you want to call it. Either one qualifies. The grape juice, we know that it's a mitzvah to have real wine for the delicacies. Some people can't handle it. It's for one reason or another difficult for them. So some pour a little bit of wine into it to mix. There's a question about how much. There's also a question about diabetics, how much to use. There's another problem with grape juice, and that is the sulfites. In order for the grapes, the must, not to turn, they're just smothered in sulfites. That's just with a shovel's worth. And some people get headaches from that and get flushed from sulfites. So Kedem makes a non-sulfite regular grape juice that one can get. Most grape juices, be it Kedem, Mishpacha, Geffen, Welch's, which is really a partnership, those are all the same. The one that is not the same is the glass bottle. The glass bottle is, as it says on it in pretty big letters, fortunately in English, very clearly, not mavushal. It's not mavushal. The Rambam's shita, the Rambam's psak is that if a person drinks grape juice that could still turn into wine, then they're often vague, they're on the road, it's on the road to becoming wine. So that's much more important, a much more important product, he says, a much more elegant product, and this would be much preferable to a regular one. What's the problem? Again, they're not mavushal. That's the good and the bad of it. The good of it is it's now a better grape juice. The bad of it is if somebody's not Shomer Shabbos or a non-Jew touches it, then we have to pour it out. So that one has to weigh whether they can afford to have such a thing or not. You will find, again, the best hashgachas, the Star K, the other ones are all doing things like this California Light baby corn, and it says on it Star KS, S for Sephardi, even though not all Sephardim, but that's the way they came out with it, that Star KS would help. And again, when we're looking at, here's a Manischewitz, But this is a gluten-free. And again, the celiacs, people who suffer from celiacs, and people who can't have gluten love Pesach. There are way more non-Jews buying all around Pesach than we could ever buy, because there's so many products now that are gluten-free. So we have, and again, this is why I mentioned each one of us needs to look. This is an OUP for everyone, because even people who only eat shmur matzah, there's no matzah, there's no grain in here. People who don't eat soaked matzah, well, this is not matzah, this is tapioca and starch. So therefore, it kind of goes across the board for everyone. On the other hand, there's real stuff, as there should be. Not everyone only has shmur matzah. Not everyone really cares about this, and then they can have a regular type of it. So the only way to tell is by looking. You have to look and see, is it a grain-free or not a grain-free? Is it something that is for whatever you are looking? There is another type of a coffee sort of that is worse, and this is Aroma, which is a very popular cereal coffee substitute. It's for people who can't take coffee, it doesn't sit well with them, but they have this is the most popular one. There are many others like it. There are grain substitutes, kind of tastes in that arena, and people use it as they would a coffee. This is chametz gomer, absolute grains of chametz and stuff. During the year, it has an OU on it. Come during Pesach, obviously, one would do as it would treat any complete chametz. The oils are I think I like to make it simple, that oil that is extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil and add virgin coconut oil. All. So wherever you find it, people tell me to find it at Costco cheap, but whatever it is, if it's an extra virgin, not everyone agrees. The Star K prefers a Pompeian and certain brands, but this is what the OU and most are recommending, that all of the extra virgin is. It's not so simple, it's not so easy. When they put it on the boat, they have to make sure that they kasha the entire tanker inside. It's huge. And people, mashgichim, will go in another country, in Greece and Italy, and they'll spend days kashering the interior of the tanker to be able to, it can't just be put in there cold. It would capsize the ship. The ship, because when they hit a roll, if it solidifies in one direction, and that's the direction that the waves hit, it'll capsize. So they keep it hot the whole time. It is kept in a liquid form. But in any case, if it is the extra virgin olive oil, and why the difference? Difference in fights in the FDA. That's all it is. Who won what? The oil in the olive oil industry has been losing for years. It used to be that pure olive oil was good. It was good for Pesach, it was good without hashgacha, and then the government allowed pure olive oil to be refined, cooked, strained, mixed, all sorts of stuff. Then at least the virgin olive oil was like that. After a few years, they lost that too. And the only one left in classification that is not touched, not cooked, is the extra virgin olive oil. That doesn't work like that on the other oil, on a coconut. Coconut oil, as you see, looks like Crisco. It solidifies all the time, and therefore that one is it. Now, I found this at a good certified kosher market, and it's oil from Eretz Yisrael, and it says shemen canola mizuman. It's canola oil. Now, canola oil, remember, doesn't exist. That's a make-believe name. And it's rapeseed oil. Rapeseed we consider to be kitnios. It's not chametz, but it's kitnios. On the other hand, and they're calling it a Canadian oil. That's what the name is. But this says, if you look around, you'll find what says use lettuce kosher l'Pesach. What I'm not so keen about this product is that every letter on it is in Hebrew, except for the bottom says refined rapeseed oil. It's the only English in the entire thing. The rest of it is only, so if you speak Hebrew, if you recognize Hebrew, that's great. Somebody can look at the hashgacha. The hashgacha is the Beit Yosef. It's a good hashgacha. One, again, has to look at the very tiny letters underneath it all where it does say kitnios. Then we've got the other oils. We have the cottonseed oil. That cottonseed oil in America is considered to be kosher l'Pesach. It has an OUP on it. Some have a star K. This one has the CRC, not Chicago. The other one, the Hasidic one on it, and that's generally what most people use. But Minhag Yerushalayim has developed many things. And Minhag Yerushalayim is not to use cottonseed oil. So in honor of that, their companies make pure vegetable oil instead. Problem is it says on the bottom ingredient is cottonseed oil, but at least it can make somebody feel better. It doesn't help the minhag, of course, at all, but it can help in that way. Lactate is chametz. Somebody needs lactate pills, then there's some work to do before Pesach. Take them, usually in little cups, or sometimes if it's a big enough type of ice cube tray, and make sure you mevatel them b'shishim before Pesach. Just put them, crush them, or don't, into a Jello, and make sure there's 60 times of the material, applesauce, Jello, whatever it is, bigger than the actual lactose pill, the lactate pill, and that would be okay. This is already batel by far, but keep in mind that bittul doesn't work on Pesach. It doesn't work on Pesach. So one cannot get this, we have to buy it before Pesach or right after Pesach. Check before Pesach the date, and I look on this one, the date, check whatever the date will be, it'll extend until after Pesach, but whatever the date is in the store before Pesach, you can still buy that during Pesach as well. It means it was processed, it was batel. You don't have to own it for the bittul. As long as it was batel by the company, that's fine. The mango chunks and the like that are just pure fruit is fine for Pesach because it's pure fruit. That's all they do. And it's usually the healthiest, it's usually the best, and the least bugs. Mango doesn't have bugs, but in any case, whatever it is, these are frozen mango chunks. They are fine for Pesach. Mixed vegetables, even those who have kitnios should not use it, because even with hashgacha on it, they in order to prevent them from getting mushy, they're blanched. They're very quickly blanched. Blanch is not quite cooking, but it's putting into, it's the same stuff where they blanch noodles. It's the same retort, the same cooker. So therefore, that does need that's where for those who are able to eat kitnios, those who have the minhag Sephardim, there's a place called the GSOR in New Jersey, an outstanding organization. They call it Straight. They have a list, and that's a good list. Otherwise, most lists I find insulting to Sephardim because it's saying things that are not true, and it's taking the matter very lightly, incorrectly. The paper and plastic, there is a bit of a different opinion, but the OU's opinion and the most follow it, and that is all paper, all plastic, all aluminum are fine and do not need any hechsher whatsoever. There are those who, which is I think a good idea, that the cheap white paper plates they don't use just because those have a starch to give them a little bit of, to solidify them. This also a good idea, because not necessarily one would have to, but it is a good idea where this is glued together, the first sheet, with the cornstarch, that is cornstarch, then it's better to not use that. At least we can use it on a counter, we can use it on cleaning something, just not for food. Matzahs come in very different types. Obviously, we're all very careful what the Seder has to be Shemora matzah. That's what one is yaitz. It says Shemartim with some matzahs. We need, every person there needs a few matzahs to be yotze the mitzvah both nights. There are machine. There are ones that are not machine, that are, of course, the hand ones all over the place. Which one is better? I have no clue. This is a machlekes that goes back hundreds of years since they invented the machines. In Germany was a big argument. In Europe was a big argument. Which is better? Said no, you can do it better, faster with the machines. You can do it better, faster by hand. Whatever it is, they're both, if they have a good hashgacha, those are great. When it comes to egg matzahs, again, we consider the egg matzahs to be a thing that is not allowed, the Rama says, for a healthy person, for a healthy Ashkenazi to use. But if a person, for children, he allows, and for people who are elderly and can't chew a hard matzah, not for the mitzvahs, not for the storing, but otherwise. However, just because this says, this chocolate covered matzah says egg matzah, that's correct, accurate, and truthful. But there's a lot of chocolate covered matzah that's chocolate covered matzah. It's regular matzah that they put chocolate on. There's nothing wrong with having it in that fashion. In most cases where the hashgacha says that it's an OUP or a star KP, there's an awful lot like that, and that is fine. It's only a problem if it is a matzah ashira, if it's like the egg matzah, or if it would be this one, let's say if it's one that they're making with grape juice. That's also a matzah ashira. This matzah is a gluten-free matzah. It has its use, sure has its use. It is not a matzah. It's tapioca, looks like a matzah, flattened till it look like it, and it can be used Erev Pesach when we can't eat matzah or bread, but this is okay because it's just tapioca, it's just imagination. And the same thing is true at any other time, but it's a shahakol. So we just have to keep in mind that it is a shahakol. There is the gluten-free oat matzah available, again, hand or machine, very, very expensive. But for those, it's mostly gluten-free, really, is what they mean. Those people buy it for the mitzvahs of the Seder, and for that, it's definitely is a good thing. If you're buying the chocolate, be careful what chocolate you're getting. This one, Shachar Oles says on it, Kitnios. There's Kitnios. They look alike. They make a Kitnios one, they'll make an OUP one. This one's an Israeli hashgacha. Keep in mind that in Israel, more than 50% of the Jews are Sephardim. So therefore, it certainly behooves them to cater to so many people, and there's no reason why they wouldn't eat Kitnios. It's not a from thing, it's a minhag thing. And the same thing is true, caught on the past few years in the United States. Why is it that there aren't hashgachas? It needs hashgacha, rice, of which many Sephardim will eat, but it needs hashgacha. Some of it has terrible vitamin A in it that is from chametz. So it does need, and it has. There's star cake gives on a couple of different types. There's a few different ones that are definitely under good hashgacha. Baby carrots are fine, but they should be washed before if you can, and if you didn't, then don't worry about it. That was all right. Things like this, obviously are not an issue. This is just a plain sponge or a Brillo pad type of thing without soap. That's not an issue. Even the soap of the major soaps, Ivory, Palmolive, Dove, and that type, they're all fine for Pesach. This is an interesting thing that I saw today at Ralph's, Manischewitz chicken broth. It says on it, OUP, that tells me something. Meat, I get, most chicken broth is meat. Then it says glatt kosher. That's not true, because we don't have glatt in chickens in the United States. Israeli chickens have glatt. They have a different breed of chicken, and they can be on the lungs a smooth and not with a bump. We don't have that in our breed of chickens anywhere in the United States. So the glatt kosher is an advertising thing. It means it's real kosher. And then underneath that it says kosher for Passover in case one doesn't know what OUP means. So they really took him. And the Shevetz is owned by Kedem, by Keiko. It was not Jewish owned for quite a while. It went from people from Europe, Talmid Chacham, who started it and went on. But in any case, it is certainly fine. The Tums, unfortunately, with the dust, because it has kitnios in it. It does have kitnios, and it's chewed, which means that it's derech achila, and that's wrong. If there's any consolation, Adwe has, I think it's pharmacy here online at koshervitamins.com. That's a major source of Pesach stuff, and they have the kosher LePesach one. As another source of comfort, the Sun Sweet prunes with the triangle P on them are recommended. These are they're fine to use. When it comes to drinks, there's all sorts of things that we're looking for. Coke, obviously with their formula, continues because of pressure to do a Pesach Coke. The only way to tell a Pesach Coke is the bottle cap, the yellow bottle cap that they're doing. What's in the yellow? All sorts of people are wondering, yellow, that must be something holy. There's got to be a secret that the Jews have in yellow. Obviously, yellow is what they chose, so they felt that fits with their scheme of coloring. It does have to have the hashgacha on it. It's very regional. It's not around the country. It's not like all Coke is under hashgacha, and a person has to be careful as well. I would like to mention that we have to be very careful. A number of people told me, well, I buy Mexican Coke. Some people buy it all year. Some people buy it for Pesach. It's expensive. They say buy it because it's the old Coke. It has real sugar in it. It does. And there's also one made here that has real sugar in it. But this is like the old Coke. Problem is the OU says they don't think it's kosher, period, all year. If you go to Atlanta, Georgia, the Coke Pavilion, you'll see they have 180 some different formulas. Some have wasabi in it. They had one, they had a different type of eel in a different one. And they're sure not all kosher. Ours is kosher since 1930, but that's only the one in the United States. So this one is not a substitute. Mexican Coke is not a substitute for the one with the hashgacha. It's not a substitute for anything, and it should not be used. The regular Coke, they take out the other corn syrup. They kosher the container, and they do put in real sugar for Pesach, so some people get it and use it. They like the taste, they use it for as long as they can. If you hear of any disagreement about Diet Coke, that's because Diet Coke has corn syrup in it. But it's not called corn syrup, as most everything in the industry don't call it what it is. It's called aspartame. Aspartame is you can adulterate corn syrup with many permutations, and you wind up with this aspartame. It's a good sweetener. It seems to work relatively well, but it's a new word came in Yiddishkeit, a new term. Davar yotzim min hakitnios. There's such a thing as something that is derived from chametz. Something is derived from, was a new term coined a few years ago, that something was derived from kitnios. The reasoning is that since kitnios is a minhag, something derived from it would not be. Now, that's not a new invention at all. This is peanut oil. This peanut oil says on as a hashgacha from also Bet Yosef, and says on it, La'ochle kitnios bavad. It's only for those people who eat kitnios. Nobody else should have this. Well, Rav Moshe disagreed. Rav Moshe wrote in the 50s that since peanuts are a mistake, then they ain't even kitnios. Just people don't know what it is, so they called, I guess it might be kitnios. They actually tried to call, what else are they going to do? The corn, everyone agreed on. The rice, everyone agreed on. Potatoes. That was the big thing of the 30s. They call potatoes. Now, can you imagine a Pesach without potatoes? It's anti-Semitic. But that was with the Shiloh what they wanted to do at the time. Everyone came to their senses and Baruch Hashem didn't. Rav Moshe said that since peanuts are not really kitnios, then a derivative of it, if they can't find anything else, they could use. The world got firmer. The opportunities became more, and therefore it's not used anymore only as kitnios. But that's what happens with this product. The aspartame is derived from it, and it's just not directly. It isn't, of course, anything directly as part of it. This I got mostly to try and figure out why would somebody want this thing. And it took me a little bit, but then I figured it's the Gemara. The Gemara in Kiddushin at the very end concludes, Mayim kenuvim yimtaku. Stolen water is sweet. And since this looks like chametz, and doesn't taste like anything, so you can't really identify it, there's a cardboard, then people buy it. There are, I noticed all sorts of stuff today that under good hashgachas, there's cakes that look like there's bread, a whole loaf of bread, there's a pita, all that stuff, and that's the only thing I could think of, the only advantage is in someone's mind. It makes them think they got away with something. And therefore it's good. The maple syrup, the OU wrote on their site for a couple of years that all are good. But then they stopped. And 2 weeks ago they said, no, don't do it, because they looked into it a bit more, and they found when maple syrup, when you cook it up to separate it, it needs a defoamer. Something called a defoamer to be able to settle it down. That defoamer can be a serious issue, chametz or kitnios. So therefore, there's a lot of the stuff available in the markets, and it's fine. It's only fine though with hashgacha now. Sugar, the plain sugar, just plain white sugar is fine. Plain white sugar, all. That's the way white sugar that we're getting is made out of beets, or it's made out of a pure other various things actually that they could do, but it's not made out of corn, and therefore that one's okay. But when it comes to CNH, we're not really worried. Even the brown sugar is a problem. Brown sugars, when they cook it and they put the molasses back into the sugar, but that's not a problem when it goes back in. And CNH and Domino both are using only pure, absolute product. And what they're doing, they are not putting anything but the straight molasses, and they do not have a defoamer on it. The pure club soda, it needs hashgacha. It has additives. Pure a seltzer water does not have additives. If it does not have flavoring, this one happens to have an OKP, the Perrier, but it doesn't need it. Any that you find is fine. There is an opinion that is concerned about the seltzer part. Most disagree. Smart water has minerals and a concern. Smart water is not a concern. Smart water is OU, and they have checked, and the minerals being used are absolutely fine. So we can use it during Pesach without a problem. Obviously, if it's flavored, it's going to need a very good hashgacha. When it comes to salt, there are various ways to get salt. One is salt comes from a mine. The other way is salt comes from the ocean. And if it's this type, sea salt, then both of them share the same thing. As long as it's not iodized, not a problem. As long as it's not iodized, it means problem. There's nothing wrong with iodine, but the iodine is glued on with corn syrup. And therefore, if it's iodized, it is. This one says this salt does not supply iodine, a necessary nutrient. And that's what this one does the same. So as both have the same wording, that's a legal wording, and both are fine. Only issue, keep in mind that you could ask the Rav, if you come to a Shaila, if you want to use the sea salt on a Kli Rishon. You take a cholent off the fire and you want to salt it in that Kli, that might be an issue because mined salt is cooked in Bishlach or Bishul for Shabbos. You don't have to worry about recooking. The sea salt is not cooked. It's just evaporated.
I went to at a Spartan house, and we were looking at the question about heater, and they said that according to most places, there's no shadow of kalim and cooking and all this because it still would be shadow cooking. How can it be kalim? But it came out that it could be kalim because Kiddush is only a chumrah, and therefore we don't be machmir about, we don't know if there's a chumrah of kalim. So
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Did they say salt needs hashgacha for Pesach?
No, they were saying it sounded like that that kalim is not an issue.
Correct. Salt does not need hashgacha for Pesach, but sea salt also does not need. But it does need, we have to think about whether we can use it on Shabbos.
No, I don't mean, we're not talking about salt. I'm talking about like in general. Let's say, the Ashkenazi goes to a Spartan.
You're talking about a totally different subject. Now, Ashkenazi goes to a Sephardi house.
It's related to this because of the machmir here, because, cooking.
It's actually not related to this at all. No, not in the light, not in the slides. This is a actual halacha in Shulchan Aruch, and this is talking about in Bishlach or Bishul. You find it in the Machaber, you find it in the Ramah, and in the Mishnah. No, that's not in the Machlekes. This is just Shaila ben Bishlach or Bishul. What you're talking about is, can Ashkenazi eat at a Sephardi house? That's a totally different question. There are three different ways the post can go on that. Some say that you can never use the kalim. That's the way most B'nai Torah go. Some say that you can use it if it's not a ben yomo. Some go like that, and some say that there's not a problem because the minhag, and we're not machmer on belias. So Ravad Yosef goes like the middle way, and there are again different poskim on that shaila.
You're saying a keli could become not kosher because of kiddush?
I wouldn't say anything, but I am saying that the poskim say that definitely a keli can become not, because then it violates an Ashkenazi's minhag, and a minhag is something that we do not violate in that fashion. Right? Correct. The another thing to look at is the nuts. If they again do not have BHA and BHT, the same thing. Same issue. BHA and BHT is a glue, so if it doesn't have the BHA and BHT, that means it wasn't glued on. So if it just says pecans, two ways to look. One, ingredients. And if you're looking all over and it doesn't have ingredients, the law is that if it's self-evident what's inside, that's the reason for the clear part of the cellophane. What they want to do is, if they didn't show it, they have to write on it ingredients pecans. If they show it, the law is they don't have to because everybody can see. You just have to look at it. That's the reason why you'll always find, if they don't, and those that cover the whole thing, then you'll find on the back it says ingredients, and it says exactly what it was. And it seems, why'd you have to tell me that? I know you said that that's what you're selling, walnuts, whatever, but that's the legal reason for it. As far as all of the raw nuts, they're okay for Pesach with Hashgacha Pesach, as long as it's not the small cut pecans. Those release a toxic oil, and in order to avoid that, they're coated. So that's the only one really that would have to go. The quinoa, after a while of playing with it, when it first came out a few years ago, it was agreed upon that quinoa is something that grows often downwind of chametz fields. And therefore, it needs hashgacha, always a good hashgacha, to make sure that it was not growing by the chametz fields. Parchment paper is something that needs hashgacha. You'll find I listed many of them, but it has to have a good hashgacha because some of them are from pig fat. And therefore, all year, parchment paper has to have. Reynolds is a very easy thing to have the OU on it. It's good for Pesach. It's good during the year. It's not an issue. The Himalayan pink salt would be just like the other salts I mentioned, other than one thing. A lot of it's pretend. A lot of it's not real. If there's real Himalayan pink salt, that is outstanding. It's a strong tasting, it's a very good product. Then there's cheaper companies that dye it pink, and that becomes a problem. And the dye itself often comes from these ladybug wings, and obviously that's not going to work for many reasons. The pure, there's again that company I mentioned before, Heaven and Earth. They have as well an OUP date sugar that they're making, and there's something like sugar in the raw. It has hashgacha on it. It didn't need it. It's just sugar in the raw. It's just raw sugar, and that type of a thing is fine. Toothpicks that are not flavored do not need hashgacha. Those are fine. The raisins, we're not really concerned about bugs. There was a bug scare a number of years ago. That was in a Hamish place that didn't store the raisins well. Normal raisins, the Kashrus Station agree, are fine during the year. The Sun-Maid have an OKP. It doesn't need it. If it's just a plain raisin, there's a fancy type of raisin that has an oil in it, but that's the rarity. Most raisins are just pure raisins, and those are okay. Most dried fruit are not okay, because those are dried, and often they put flour on top of it to keep away flies and things. But the raisins are not like that, and the raisins are fine. This chametz, I don't want to take away parnasa from anyone, but one is yotze the mitzvah without buying 10 pieces of matzah to put out at the sub. You have the same mitzvah if you tear apart 10 things. What they meant to do, I think, is to label them. So therefore a person won't by accident a thing. But if a person would do that, it's fine. If it's a tea, any of the herbal teas now are being floated mostly with alcohol. So there's a lot out there. There's Bigelow with hashgacha for Pesach. There's Wysotsky has also. There's an awful lot out there, but we need it. It does need to have the hashgacha. Paracomb, there are a couple of orange juices. There is the Simply Orange, the Tropicana, and Paracone Farms, with or without the KSAP. The new stuff in a few days will be out with the KSAP. They're only doing that because it makes people more comfortable to see the P next to it, but it is okay either way. The Tropicana, as far as that scare that was a couple of years ago with bugs and stuff, I do recommend it still because that's what the posting generally came consensus is all right, even though it may have some scale insects in it, they're already at that point bottled. Yeah.
You have the Alvin Breeze.
Yes. There are a few of these. This is not l'chatchila for healthy people. This is for children. If you can't get the Liebers or the Geffen, there's a few almond milks out there that are with a good hashgacha for everyone. The original almond, and I've listed about a dozen of them that do not have flavoring, don't have machinery issues, but they don't have hashgacha on them, and they could have become contaminated. They are bottled. So when they're needed sometimes for certain situations, those could be used. But it's not the preferable way to go. It's only when a person has to. That's the reason that I have it here. But again, there are better ways to go with the other ones that are certified for Pesach. Keep in mind, again, that aluminum foil does not need any hashgacha on it. And for those who cannot spend a Pesach without the Via Instants. The Via Instant, not decaf, but the Via Instant, most of the flavors have an OUP on them. And I've listed all the different flavors a person could have, so there is hope. If a person must have coffee, there is an espresso. An espresso machine. They're incredible, the amount of stuff they have for Pesach. The Keurig and espresso, between the two, a person can stay up for the story without a problem. Okay, I think that mostly covers what we needed. If there are any others, I listen. Yeah.
You touched before on oil, coconut oil, and you said something about virgin coconut oil.
Virgin coconut oil is fine. Okay. I don't see why I don't see it right here, but the virgin, oh, here it is. Here it is. It says virgin, not extra virgin. Extra virgin, they just came out this year. Some people, I'm not sure quite legally how they're getting away with it, but they're calling some of them extra virgin. Really, unless it is a liquid, they're not supposed to call it extra virgin. But whereas the olive oil needed to be extra virgin, called extra virgin olive oil, and then we're in gray. This one is just called virgin coconut oil, and that's also okay. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
What's the halachic status of the meat that's grown in the laboratory?
I don't know. The OU took a stance recently. The problem with meat grown in a laboratory is the first problem is, of course, a goy. It's trade for goyim, because the real way to do it is to take out the DNA from the live animal and then grow it. And that apparently grows well and grows just like the meat. The difficulty there is that's Ever Min HaChai. So the poskim all agreed that a Ben Noach can't eat that. A goy can't eat that. For instance, if we owned for a Jew to own a company to make that would be usher, and giving it to a goy would be usher. Giving it to a Jew, of course, would be usher. If it's taken, what they finally found, the company in Israel that does it is making chicken, and they're taking the DNA from eggs, which are fresh and still have the DNA, and they're able to do it, and they haven't gotten to meat yet, and see how to overcome this DNA issue. There is a way, they know, but that's, as the Radvaz said, that's a very poor idea, and that's to have a ben pakua. You have a ben pakua, you shech the mother with the baby inside. Moments before it gives birth, that baby does not need shechita. So then there may be a way to maneuver to do it. Right now everyone's afraid to, and rightfully so. New and improved, I always say, is great with Tide, very bad in Yiddishkeit. So they're very hesitant to actually to move it. But we'll see this year where there's money to be made. I think there will be a lot of effort. So we'll see. Yeah.
Things used from year to year. I used to have a guest who'd come for the Seder, would bring out me a bottle of Slivovitz. We'd have a little bit of Slivovitz or Pesach.
Right.
But now I have like a Slivovitz wing of my house. Because I don't drink it really hardly
Okay,
any time.
good.
If I basically taped it up and wanted to use it the next year,
You can use it 100 years later. Doesn't make a difference. The only thing is,
thinking like the
the Gemara says, La'olo, Ma'ita la'olo daite. If it's not in your mind, then you can't. Let's say going at Trader Joe's to an open bin of coffee beans and doing, well, it's coffee beans. Yeah, but right next to the crackers. And they could have gone in, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, but why not? If it's 2 weeks before, it's not a sensitive issue. Therefore, a person might do it. On Pesach, of course, we're thinking about what we're doing. So therefore, we can't, if there is a shiloh of contaminant, but let's say you did what you said. Some people keep matzah year to year, and many people keep other products or spices year to year. There is no hidur. There's no, as long as the matzahs taste good, they're 100% fine, just as good. As long as the silver tastes good, it's just as fine. As long as you know that it wasn't opened and sitting on your Shabbos table during the year. That's really all that you need to know, and you know that, so then you're in great shape.
I'm asking to
Then you're in great shape. The halacha talks about, the Shulchan Aruch talks about in Tzadei Hay, that if a person would take a salt, not a salt shaker, but a salt dipper on the table. He says, no, I didn't dip my challah in it. It doesn't count. Because it was fine to dip the challah in it then. So maybe we don't remember. We're not paying attention. But in your case, that's just fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Quick question. There's no issue on the lettuce heads or anything this year?
On the lettuce?
Lettuce heads, they're like romaine lettuce, like you said last time, you can get the lettuce.
There's still my understanding is RCC has some that's been pre-checked. That's a bug issue.
Yeah.
And I'll take a lot longer.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The other quick question is baking chocolate, 100% baking chocolate.
Has to be kosher lepesa. Must be kosher
Yeah,
lepesa.
'cause all of them have sugar. Do you know any brand that doesn't have sugar?
No.
I don't know what they put, okay.
No.
And then last but not least is dextrose. You talked about a derivative. Dextrose is a derivative of
Correct.
corn.
But it's a very direct derivative. It hasn't gone anywhere near the processing that it's unrecognizable in aspartame, whereas as dextrose,
Yeah.
it's a direct derivative. It's like separating curds and whey in milk.
Yeah.
It's a component.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bagged lettuce is still not good for.
The bagged lettuce still has to preserve an amount of citric acid that can be chametz. So no, not here. They do have in the East Coast lots of bagged lettuce. And they talked about bringing it here, but they said you freeze it, you ruin it, and to leave it fresh. By the time it gets here, it's going to be pretty stale. So there wasn't really a good way other than flying it, and that would be so prohibitively expensive. That's why it was abandoned. But that's where in the East Coast, which actually they're getting it from Mexico, but further up, and there's a lot of volume, so it's worth their while. They right away put it into refrigerated trucks and drive it up, and that volume apparently it pays. And it still is an incredibly expensive product. Yeah.
The poor romaine,
Yeah, Andy Boy type of romaine hearts.
right, is that required to, are you concerned about that?
You would need before Pesach to wash each one well.
So prepare it
so.
at least the day.
Yeah, you'd want to
More than
prepare
6 hours
before.
before.
Correct. Okay, have a kosher Pesach, everyone. It's always good to be back. And
Okay, we'd like to thank Rabbi Ellis once again. Again, we have the pamphlets. I'd like to thank everybody online across the country, especially our friends in Dallas. Everybody have a kosher Sameach.